Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on your time zone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have Mary Graham and Tyson Yunkaporta together to discuss Australia's political future, where to from here. In just a moment, I'll hand straight over to Mary and Tyson to have a bit of a yarn. There'll be time for a few questions at the end. We're in a webinar format, so please write questions in the Q&A box down below. And the WAIJIN Research Hub is an emerging space that Mary Graham and many other colleagues are working on together. It's dedicated to Indigenous governance, ecological stewardship, and cultural renewal. It's going to be a centre for people to connect and amplify Indigenous research and Indigenous-led partnerships. Today's webinar series, the first of two, we wrote the following description. We live in strange times. Are we witnessing the decline of the nation state? Is capitalism in its death throes? Will artificial intelligence help or hinder humanity? And will we ever get serious about climate change? How might we reimagine political and governance futures? So I'd like to hand over now to Mary Graham to enjoy a conversation with Tyson, who appears to have wandered outside for a moment, but I'm sure he'll be back. Over to you, Mary. Thank you so much, both of you.
Okay. Well, I'll introduce myself, I guess. Yeah. So my name is Mary Graham. I'm speaking to you from Southport in on the Gold Coast. This area here is the land or country of my father, Yugambeh language speaking people, and the family clan group I belong to is Combomeri. It's only a small region with about 6 clan family groups left. There were 8. The first 2, we think, were more or less disappeared by colonialism very early on. So there are not many people left, hardly any, who count themselves as these other mobs, just south of Brisbane, actually. And on my mother's side, she was Waka Waka from Gayndah, from Cherbourg, where she was on, used to be called Baramba. So she was under the Act. But what I didn't know, Tyson, was that everybody in Queensland was under the Act, actually. They all were. But yet somehow some groups actually worked their way, or just, I don't know if it was insistence or resistance or whatever, but they just carried on as they wanted to. But some people in some areas, huge numbers of people, rounded up and put onto reserves. Our lot here on the Gold Coast, we carried on, looking after ourselves mainly. In the bad old days, the very bad old days, there were massacres going on too. But somehow we came through, gradually intermarrying with whitefellas. But in the earlier days, you know, we were mainly dealing with each other, our own other kind of different mobs around this region here. So just the only other thing is that when you look at the people that are listening and watching, when you look at the whole country, you can see it in Western ways of calling it regions. So it's a regional kind of system that we have, regions which never turned into states. But what we call it, of course, is country. So we all individually call, you know, mother's country, father's country, and so on. So I'm me from my father's country, and I visit my mother's country not as often as I should and can. Thank you.
Yo, yes, Andy.
Sure.
I just put some smoke out there for us.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, to kick off. You probably can't see it, but it's all billowing
I
up
can
out
see
there.
it, yeah.
Coming through the window. Yeah, that good old way.
Yeah.
And yeah, to build on what you're saying, it's just sovereignties within sovereignties. You know, a lot of you know, this foreign law and international law, you know, has a very linear and singular idea of sovereignty as, you know, something that's under a nation, which was a concept only invented about a century ago. you know, and I guess we're looking at a world order that's currently collapsing, unraveling under all those sort of treaties from before. Yeah, and I mean, just at that moment where we're becoming like First Nations, but kind of last nations really, we're the last to
First and
come
last.
in now, just at the stage where it's about to not matter in
Yes.
the world, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, so you know, yeah, so from me coming from, you know, a few different lost mobs, and you know, just that idea of, you know, just because people were recorded as being here, like in a place, it doesn't mean that they, you know, that was their first language or anything like that, because, you know, we have always, you know, been vibrantly on all our trade routes and, you know, meeting for ceremony. And I think we're talking a bit about borders and sovereignties today, and, you know, what that means for a world where the law is changing and growing around that. Oh, that smoke just coming through really good now. Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
almost smell it from here.
Sweeping me, you know, so, you know, my mob, you know, in that old way.
Yes.
Lorway is Upledge clan up on Western Cape York, and we speak Wickwonkan. Not because that's our, you know, original tribal language, but that's the language that's the lingua franca, you know.
Yes. Yep.
There, and you know, a few other languages. Lots of Gugu mobs there who are, you know, like elders in our community, and you know, like yeah, Google typing and all that kind of thing. I got promise marriage links to that mob. Yeah, and they were on the Wick native title, you know, like all of us together, you know, back in the day.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people think was 94, but it didn't actually, it wasn't handed down till 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I was there for that, and dancing and everything else
Big
that went
celebration.
on around that. Yeah. Got the t-shirt. It's got holes in it now. Yeah. So
Can I
yeah, and
ask
that's
you a question?
and
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yo.
No, go on.
Just that, you know, I'm a Brolga boy, you know, primarily.
Right. Yes.
You know, of course, there's, you know, lots of sets of totems there, mother side, father side,
Yes.
ancestral owl, that, you know, where I got like sung into country on that song line that goes from south to north, you know, sung into family. Yeah, and that, I don't know, just this winter time, you know, a lot of people think of spring as a time for abundance and fertility, but you know, winter is, you know, for us. And so I see that down here with, you know, a lot of people think winter is a dead time, but yeah, lots of like eagles, turkeys, lyrebirds, you know, all kinds laying eggs. And my Puluwai Brogla, he's flown north now, and so he's back up home. She's back up home there, and you know, laying her egg, or maybe two if she's lucky, because that dark emu there in the Milky Way that we all see, that's the time all over for her to be laying eggs, and then that man staying with them. And I guess that's what I'm doing today, because my little autistic fella has had a meltdown over the last week, so I'm the only one who can watch him. So yeah, I might get interrupted here because I'm
Of course,
like a daddy emu.
Yes.
Mum
Yes.
have been run off there. Yeah. Yeah, so that's where I'm here on Bunurong country now, and just watching all these things unfold, and the ants did their mating ceremony and everything joined in, you know, a few weeks back. And you know, you see everything change. Then yeah.
Thanks.
I'm trying to make friends with a fox, because I live right
Yes.
on a railway line, and they like to live there because they don't get disturbed.
Oh,
So I'm trying to understand foxes at the moment and find out their story from all these Irish people.
yes, that would be interesting, eh?
Yeah. anyway, so that's where I'm at and what I'm doing now, and yeah, where I've been.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, what's that question?
Well, the question was, I just looking back in the general world history, where I don't want to go back further to the Romans or anything, the great imperial powers, you know, but when the colonizations that we know started, it's about, I always see it as it was around about the time of Crusaders. So it's about 1,000 years from that time to now. And I just always wondered why it couldn't be seen. And probably it was seen, but it was ignored or something like that, you know, because about the kind of ordering, the political and social, cultural, psychological, I suppose, ordering that people sort of ended up with, you know, and that some of the what we would call traps, I'm sure, of not establishing, first of all, a proper relationship, correct or proper relationship with land itself, you know. I know there's probably heaps of reasonings, apart from the insulting racist one of us being too primitive, apparently.
Yeah.
Which I don't see primitiveness at all. Where I see it in Gaza. That's primitive. That's real primitive. But what I see is a general kind of thing with human beings getting consciousness and working things out, and you know, being realistic about things, and truly realistic, because that's what always struck me is from when I was quite young. I was I don't know where I got it from, but I just started to observe things. We all do, eh? And you definitely probably would have, you know. Watch your own mob, how they talk with each other. How do blackfellas talk with each other and converse, and you know, and so on. And then I watched whitefellas, how they converse and mix with each other. And then I watched blackfellas and whitefellas talking to each other, and all the different styles, different ways of their approach, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a rough idea as I was growing up further then of us being having this autonomous, what I now call an autonomous regard, you know, that we're autonomous beings. We are autonomous beings. We're our own selves. We own ourselves. We're our own bosses, and so on. But the word boss, as I know we've thrown it around too, meaning that someone is an authority over us or with us, but not as in a ruler or something. But that there's a difference between authority and power, things like that. And I'm not saying whitefellas speak with authority. Well, some people do, of course, police and so on and so on. But who the thing that the what do you say, the state of being, I suppose, comes up of being in charge of the country. You're running the country. Whereas our own old idea is what I've been told, the country owns us and so on. And I still believe that. I still believe that that's an old, it's a proper old principle, you know, law, principle, call it what you like. But when colonialism comes in, the dynamic kind of changes. We don't really change, but we do see this new thing, and it is brand new. Here we've been all this time here, and it's never been invaded, not ever. They don't even know what the word invasion is, you know. Classic invasion is invade the country, have your conquered, conquest, and then that other word of taking over, of I forget what it is now, but it's simply taking over the whole country. No, that's a classic one, but there's not even, as far as I'm aware, you'd have to do long-term research into it, language research, there's no word for invade. There's plenty of words for fight.
Yeah.
You know, all kind. Just name all the different kinds of fighting you can have between each other, between different mobs, family, warrior, duels. You know, dueling and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But not invade. And I
Yeah.
always think that is an amazing thing. Myself, when you read, when you end up growing up enough to understand a whole lot more about the world itself, world history, it's an amazing thing that so many countries invaded each other. I don't get it, you know. I didn't get it at first, and then you go through trying to understand it.
Well,
And
that's
yet
why.
it hasn't finished, you know. I mean, colonialism right now, it still goes on. How is that, do you reckon?
Yeah. Well, it's that well, sovereignties within sovereignties, as I said before, and it's a bit like that sacred sort of symbol of the concentric circles. You know, there are multiple sovereignties, you know, as you go out further afield. And, you know, the larger the sovereignty, the greater the law that holds us interdependent, you know, which is why we have to adopt people in and we have to adopt people out, marry people in, marry people out. And we have to travel for ceremony, like long distances. Yeah, but that's that, and all is got that big law that goes through every circle of that, what you raised with the bosses. You know, there's no boss. Nobody can force you to do anything. That's like that first law, big law, you know. Yeah, you have autonomy.
Yeah,
But
you're
then
an
your
autonomous
relational
being.
obligation as well that balances that, as you know.
Yeah.
Because it has to be lawful. And then I guess that there's that right of movement so that you can travel if you're doing it lawfully, and also right of affiliation, you know, that you can, you know, be and become affiliated further afield, because that's what creates the interdependence. You know, you can't invade because that's your mob sort of everywhere, you know. So whose country can you take over? It also makes systems anti-fragile, because if a volcano goes off and everyone in that language group dies,
yes,
you know, then there are people, you know, further away who can come back. They can bring back that that mitochondria and that language and the story and everything else, and so that's why we had that's how we sustain it for that long. You know, but this really singular idea, this single circle of sovereign, you know, that we got from the Northern Hemisphere here, from the global North, that one, you know, that's no good. That's them like interacting with us, with tribal people, and, you know, their own people the demotic, you know, the common folk, people from the commons who held land in common. Yeah, they're all right, you know, but they take things from them, like cultural things, but then change them. So, you know, that idea of a person of authority, a person of knowledge, that's always been not a boss or secular life day to day. You know, that's a person of authority for ritual authority, ceremony, you know, cultural
knowledge too.
It's for these things. You know, and that they keep those ways like that for us. And so they have that authority in those ritual contexts, you know, and even like this idea, what Gubbers called chiefs and all that sort of thing that a lot of us take on. This is King Billy from
unfortunate
Combo Mary country or something like that, like Queen Mary there.
Jackie or something.
Breastplate.
Terrible.
You know, that one's that same perversion of taking that, you know, what in Europe was called a festival king, and that was king for that festival, for the holy days.
Right,
you know what I mean? And then, at some stage, that person holding that authority and keeping it. And I guess, like, I want to go 1,000 years back to follow the knights that you were talking about, because that's important. That's where the economic side come in.
That's right, yeah.
But, you know, for that, you got to think 10,000 years back, when the last time the world changed on a global scale, you know, and the ice melted back off Europe, and they all went rushing in, you know, to populate. humans and non-humans,
Yeah.
So not much biodiversity there because they've only had 10,000 years, Yeah, but every country like reacted in different way,
Yes.
So for us mob, that meant the sea level rose and the continent dried out. And so, we had to respond to that water scarcity by creating even more abundance than what was before. We downsized and diversified all our megafauna, so we created more diversity, more complexity, and millions more relationships and symbioses, so making that strong, complex ecosystem. And that's how we ended up with the strongest biodiversity on the planet. These are all sacred landscapes by design. Whether you believe in spirit or not, it's the spirit WAIJIN, that ceremony and that understanding of our custodial role, that's what builds it, like, so all the things that happen seasonally, they've co-evolved to happen at times of different ceremony, for us,
Yes.
So that everything flowers, blooms, the sap runs so we can get that bark at this time, so all the things that we need for ceremony are happening at once, and the seed distribution of certain things and those needing to be smoked, that coincides. So we've co-evolved all our ceremony together with human and non-human world. So anyway, so not everybody reacted like that. A lot of places turned festival kings into proper kings and started doing boss work and that. So, and you can't just blame Gubbers for that because that was in the Middle East and in parts of Asia, did that experiment with that. And so then that makes empire possible, so they can get bigger and they can take land. So when you see it happening, in Europe, that the kings and queens, that was when they developed that in Europe, that idea of the sovereign.
Yeah, sovereignty
Being
comes from
invested
there.
in one person who represents everybody.
Owns
So
the
there's
land.
that sovereignty. And then, of course, the Westphalia later, made these nations, and the nations are sovereign, but often ruled by a sovereign leader, which has returned a bit to a ritual role, in Britain and, is it Denmark or places like
All
that.
over,
Still have
all
a
over
monarch.
Europe.
Australia, he still has a monarch. He doesn't come here much, but
It hasn't come.
but anyway, 1,000 years ago, and you can jump in with this one if you like. It's those same knights you were talking about. They were on crusades in the Middle East.
Yes,
Which had
that's where it started.
which had, all those civilizations had sort of degraded, and people went back to a pastoral sort of lifestyle that was more connected to land and with more distributed authority. And they had these bazaars, so marketplaces where they were all, bargaining. And so, what they exchange, even money, gold, things like that in the marketplace, that value of things wasn't set by a centralized authority. It was set by the people in relation. So they'd haggle and they come into relation. They and their personal, their family and everything. It's like, oh, I have 7 children to feed. So that will come into the bargaining process about how much something is worth. Or they make a connection and be loyal. Okay, well, I'll give you good price on this, but you got to come back to me next time you buy an eggplant. Don't go to Bruce over there. He's, I hate that follow you. You come back to me. You know what I mean? So they kind of, it was, value was set like in relation. So currency was still relational. And that's the bit the knights missed. They brought back that idea of being able to trade, precious metals as currency and to have a bazaar, like a free market economy. But they wanted to control it centrally because those sovereign lords and warlords and kings, they wanted to be able to control things, with that money. They wanted to, keep that feudal sort of system there. So anyway, it kind of all came, it's kind of come down from that. And so, the global economy is that global north version of it, which, like democracy, which the French and the Europeans learned from the Native Americans, they sort of perverted it so that they could, have that idea and the ideals of it, the lofty ideals, but also so that the powerful could maintain control over everybody and squeeze them. and so that basically they'd be able to tell people what to do and they'd have to do it.
Yeah.
So so that's how all that's come about. If you're looking at those nights that you were talking about.
No, I
It's
wasn't
hard though to
looking at the
talk about
nights.
one piece of history,
I
because
wasn't
you've got to
looking at the
weave in
nights.
so much.
I was going to look at the Pope, actually.
Oh,
The Pope
yeah.
that
And the
tells the
papal
nights,
bull.
that tells all the nights, some old Pope out of
Yeah.
nowhere tells all the nights. Now that we've already, Roman style, we've weaponized that religion, Christianity,
Yep.
because
And monetize
it's
it.
growing in great popularity.
Yeah.
So we've got to go over there to that Holy Land where it comes from and take over that then.
Yeah.
So they go over there and they have a couple of wars, about 4 or 5 apparently. They win at first, but then in the end they lose. So they have to piss off back over to Europe, and then another couple of centuries goes by. And then somebody has this idea of, well, it's all about economics, and God approves of everything that we do. So, and God is on our side, and in all kinds of ways. So they set sail for countries halfway around the world, around the other side of the world, and that's when the colonialism that we know starts. And it just goes on right up to now, and it hasn't finished. But this, what you see around all of us, everybody sees every time, all the unbelievable, depraved, degenerate cruelty that goes on with some countries. They just carry on, and it hasn't finished, and it's gotten worse, and it's gotten more normalized, which is a terrifying thought for future generations. You want to look after children, all generations coming, that will become normal the way they are now, and that's all the result, I believe, of colonialism.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. There seems to be nothing wrong with it. They just argue and argue, and to me, it's like some kind of spiritual version of I want what I want and I must have what I want. At the cost of absolutely everything. And you can think of colonialism, and of course you can think of capitalism. It's a perfect, meaning of that too. But colonialism for sure. And all these things, I think the brilliance of the old Aboriginal systems, which started with the relationalist connection with land, learning about reciprocity and all that sort of thing, looking after land, and not falling into the trap of, say, competitiveness over resources, capturing resources, which leads to hierarchies, led straight away to hierarchies. And everybody, especially the West, but a whole lot of cultures around the world totally believe in hierarchies, which is part of the problem, which is a big part of the problem, actually. And of course, that thing of not invading each other either, because what we did was simply imbue the land with sacrality. So straight away, it just stops you from invading other people. The other thing is that a cynic, a white fellow cynic, might say, well, of course you've worked that out. You lived in a the biggest island continent in the world. You had nobody else here. No one else except to the north, Melanesian people. They're very close though, but even though they're different culture. But the occasional visits of Asians coming and going for nearly 2,000 years. How the hell they didn't get the bright idea of, gee, this place is empty, but it's full of good things.
Yeah.
Why don't we just take it over? But they didn't. They established a relationalist connection,
That's
which
it.
was good for both.
Yeah.
So they did a whole lot of things, besides having the most brilliant logic. All perspectives are valid and reasonable. So because every other place was in regionalism, they're all their own bosses. I reckon, they're trying to, some good people and good thinkers, analysts are around, philosophers, politicos, and so on, talking about multipolarity. We invented multipolarity. With Aboriginal characteristics. And that's this regionalism of every place being autonomous. Every place being autonomous. And talking about sovereignty, we mightn't have had the word sovereignty, but we knew that you don't go around invading other people's country and trying to work out a hierarchy where some or a group of mobs get together and want to dominate everybody else. we had to, at the last Commonwealth Games protest, the elders down here met up with them, all the entities, all the institutions, you know, the local government, state government, Commonwealth government even, besides the games officials and so on, health people, you name it, but also including the police. And our view, what we said to them, that they must take notice of, is that, look, all you have is power. You have, but you have this power, weapons, the whole lot. And of course, apparently they really were worried about, you know, is it, what do you call it, terrorists and all that kind of stuff. But we said, but however, we've got authority. We've had authority for a very, very long time. And because we looked after the place, ran the place, but you don't have authority. You don't have it at all. You have an artificial authority. So authority backed up by violent power and weapons and so on. That's an artificial thing. It's not real. We said, so we have authority. So how this big event takes place, we'll give you some rules about how to behave in our country. And these rules, with some changes, also went to other people, just the people who are interested in the sport, you know, including other blackfellas too, who are visiting, who just wanted to see the sport. And people who rightfully want to sell their goods, you know, various things that they'd made and created and so on. And fair enough, you know. So some of our lot were against it, against the games, but a lot weren't. We said, no, you have this, if you like, just remember whose country this is and how to behave in it. So, mind you, we said that to the blackfellas too. You know, have the protest. That's great. You know, we would never stand in the way of Aboriginal people having a protest. It's like a tradition. But just don't go around smashing shop windows or overturning cars and things like that. Hold up the traffic, shout, yell, you know, and so on and so on. Swap insults, I suppose, you know, but take it easy, you know. So that whole thing of whose land, that we are owners and runners of country, our own countries, of course, is a real thing, and that's real authority. You can't have artificial authority. That's the problem when you might end up with, and of course the whole world ends up with a very cruel, corrupt, greedy hegemon that wants to own the whole world and follow it up with violence too.
Yeah.
You know? Do what we say or we'll make you do it, you know, and so on. And everybody knows it. And the amazing thing too is that the whole of so many countries, Western countries, and of course it's only to be expected, they agree with this. They agree with that primitivism going on in Gaza. They actually won't do anything about it. You know, I mean, you just wonder how people manage to become human in the first place.
Well,
you know, that's what I can't understand. That's why their governance.
I think
they desperately need a global governance, and many people are asking for that, but they have no idea where to go, and they're staring them in the bloody face. You know, the land is what you look after. You have to look after something outside of the self. You have to have the capacity for correction, self-correction, whether it's stopping smoking or changing the culture, society, the state. You have to have the capacity for it, but they don't seem to.
Well, they're just longing for like what's in their makeup as a species, as human beings, is that first law, and that center of that first law is the right of refusal. And you have to have $1 billion to have that ultimate right of refusal. You know, so that's what the competition's about, and the greed. It's actually about people trying to reclaim, you know, their birthright, which is the right to say no. And that's like, you know about that. Like, you got that Waka Waka connection. That's what it means. Waka Waka means no.
Yes, no.
And same.
Well, Yugam bear, and Yugam means no too.
Yeah. There's all that big region of no peoples.
Yeah,
you know,
the no
really
people.
keep
That's
that,
what I thought.
you know, they have that, keep that law for everybody. And it's really important, you know, like Gamilaroi, that means the people who have no, you know, Uluru, Uwalari, you know,
that's right, yes.
all in once, you know, around there, it's all about the people who say no like this.
Mm.
You know, so they keep that right of refusal, and that's that sovereign law. But that's every single human being on the planet is encoded, you know,
Yes.
to have that. But we all live in these lives where we're being coerced, and that's a frustration signal.
Oh,
And so that's what motivates us, because we know it. It's like, do this or die. You can't have access to food unless you do what
yes.
you're told, you know. So we all want to get enough money, enough surplus, enough wealth, because the more you have, the more people you can say no to, you know. But you
That's
keep
right,
going
yes.
and keep going and keep going.
Yes.
And
Well,
then
you
you're
can tell the
Elon
government
Musk
what
with
to
$1
do.
billion, then you're Elon Musk with $200 billion.
He's a
And
trillionaire. For
most
God's
people
sake.
can't say no to you,
He's
but
actually proud of it.
yeah, but now he's got to be trillionaire, and he has to. He has to, because there's still people in the world who can say no, who can tell him what to do. You know, the government can tell him, no, you're not allowed to dump those
And he
chemicals
says,
there.
what?
You're
Who are
not
you
allowed to
telling
run a
no?
racist and openly racist workplace. You're not
Yes.
allowed to do that. And he's like, well, all right, so I need to have more money than the richest 7 countries in the world. I need to be as powerful as a rich nation in order to have enough sovereignty to be able to say no to everybody. And that's it. So there's never enough,
There's never
you
enough.
know.
There's
You know,
never
under
enough
that law
colonialism,
that's sort of
ever.
created to override people's right of refusal. Because, you know, invasion, acquisition, you know, doesn't work without that. Yeah. And it's all come out of like somebody, I don't know, somebody noticed at some stage, it's like, oh, you know, when I'm in this sovereign ritual king, state, I can say to that girl there, hey, come here. Yeah, I can, override consent. I can override that right of
Any
refusal that
consent,
people
yeah.
have, and they're doing it like in a ritual way. So it's, it's sort of fun and everything. And it's just, play acting, but it's like, well, what if I had this for real? What if all the time I could walk around and say, tell people to do whatever you want, yeah. That's mine. Yeah. And I guess someone became addicted to it and then enforced it with violence, and then somehow the people didn't kill them for that, which, traditionally everywhere in the world you would. Now you got to remember too that the colonizers, they were still colonizing their own people.
Yes, of course.
They were still colonizing their own people when they came here to colonize us.
Yeah.
They were like stripping people of the commons, that they still had, and they were still invading people like that. And it's basically just like gentrification. You can take over people's land by sort of buying it. Once you can, do those land enclosures and turn land into real estate, then you can start buying up the places on some regular community's land, and then starts sending the lowest of your group in there to occupy it, and then they build it up and gradually eject all those people. That's happens right now, gentrification,
Yes.
That's the middle class and higher classes, wealth class in Australia, like they send their poorer people from their class, like the young people and the artists and the students, that they come in and they can afford the rent or the real estate, that they bought up cheap. And so they get them to go in there first and paint the walls in the places and have an organic grocery shop down the road, and and slowly convert the place. And then they can send in the more powerful people to push them out. And I guess that's what they did here. The people that they dispossessed, all those criminals and criminals like people stealing food because their kids are hungry, and the Irish that they dispossessed, and the Scots and bloody everyone else.
Yes.
Yeah, and Pacifica people and bloody African people they had in that first fleet too. All those people, they sent them here, and then those people have a chance to have that nice period of gentrification where, you know, someone with nothing can
Oh,
have
yes.
lots, just as long as they're happy enough to do the heavy lifting of displacing the people who are
right,
there,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I guess that's how they do it. They
Mm.
can
Well,
leverage that.
I always see it like everybody is colonized, but some people
Yeah.
are more colonized than others, and they don't,
Yeah, that's
they
it.
prefer not to even get out of it, actually. But
Yeah.
what I still fail to understand, though, too, is the majority, huge majority of people all over the world, they know what's going on. They can see it now. For brilliant alternative media, not the horrible, the Western media, which is just a servant of the government and the corporations, really. I don't know. I can't remember the last time I watched any news at all on TV. I usually go to other alternative media, and
Yeah.
a variety of them, totally from different cultures too. And then you really find out, you find out what's actually going on, like the whole thing with Iran.
Yeah.
I read Press TV. That's their media, and you find out really what's going on. And while somebody might say, "Oh, well, every country's got their own propaganda,"
Yeah.
that this is people who are talking to their own people, and showing it and demonstrating it, and so on and so on. They're doing that. That's also why I have, even though they were cruel in their own ways, in some ways, over the thousands of years, a lot of those old countries, they really did end up with, you can say, they have a civilizational state. That's what they ended up with. And our lot, we aim for a civilizational culture with all those things about looking after land. The old
Yeah.
rules and laws of,
Yeah.
look after country, look after kin, look after people.
Mm.
The land is the source of the law, and so on and so on. It's all very, very, very good in that way, and that's a civilizational culture. So hopefully, I don't know about the rest of the world, but geez, I try to work with, talk, write, do everything to try to bring about an Australia that's not even 300 years old yet. They haven't even got a metaphysical identity yet, because they refuse to examine, what do you call it, the consequences of things. They're frightened of examining the consequences of things.
Yeah.
All the things that have happened, they run away from it. So the more they run away from it, they're going to keep having they keep getting further away from having a metaphysical identity. In other words, a real meaning of who they are and what they are and where they're going and so on and so on. They're too frightened of it.
Yeah.
That's why they don't take any notice of blackfellas, of course. They think it's
Yeah.
all they do think it's all very interesting and exotic and all that kind of stuff. And they do have respect for it, but not enough, of course, not enough to stop, blasting away at our sacred sites and stuff like that. Because you can never stop that and profit
Yeah.
and get in the way of what are they called? Corporations,
Yeah.
mining, and all that. You can't stop them. That's the holy grail. That's the last great sin, really, that exists in the world. So we're gonna. I think we're going to have to. We are, without even trying. I think, try and help the Australians to work towards a metaphysical identity by learning how to look after a country, mind a country, because that's why that old saying says, look after country, look after kin, look after the people. If you know how to look after the country, then you will really know properly how to look after people. Really will. So that idea, that old logic of all perspectives are valid and reasonable, that could easily fall again into the trap of what do you call it? Relativism. You can't have relativism. That's an extreme thing, So again, brilliant old blackfellow ways of thinking and doing. Yeah, well, you have to make it to counter that relativism. You have to look after something that's bigger and more important than yourself. And so that idea of sacralizing land, so you're looking after land, you're looking after something outside the self on behalf of the self and the land. So, actually, over those You don't have to, well, maybe you do, thousands of years. Maybe you do need that long. What comes in then is a notion about ethics, about conscience, having a conscience. Now, all those good things that make people feel good, actually, because they have to have, all human groups, they need to have confidence in their system, the system that is in place. And I don't think anybody in the West or in many other countries don't have that. But we always did. But now we're sort of got to watch our back too, because who knows? The latest rendition of a so-called leader, the red-haired one, she might send us all back onto reserves. You never know. You see terrible things going on overseas. Why wouldn't they go back to here in this country, go back to the genocide that happened in this country too? Which is why I can't understand. I also can't understand why people are so indifferent to all this that's going on all over the world and can't add two and two together. I know there are white friends who I could rely on. We could all rely on. But I don't know about the whole of it, the whole country, under the leadership of somebody like who. I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them.
Well, that's where it all comes back round. People get mixed up between what's true and what's real. They start to think that what's true for them is real. And that's that, because they don't have there has to be a metaphysics where there's a common foundation around an agreement on the reality. Your story for it might be different, but it's got to have that agreement, So in this living spirit, this way, like I respect that dark emu in the Milky Way in the south.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, like I respect that one. I know it's that story, but for me, it's a different story. That's not a dark emu for everybody else. Not for everybody. There's different story for that.
Yes.
But you sit with the stories of other people because that's true. But it's all anchored in something real.
That's right.
So
it's
if
real.
I turn around and say, well, that's not a dark emu, that's actually a story about something else, that's fine, because that's my truth. But if I then said, no, so this isn't the season for emu eggs, we won't go out and get those eggs now because that's not my story, that's not the right story. It's like, well, sorry, Tyson, you're going the wrong way. Like you can't.
Yes.
You can't suddenly change.
Mary, would you like a couple of questions? We've got about 10
just
minutes left.
Give us a second.
Oh, yes,
this is really important.
Keep going, please.
We have to have a common agreement on the reality of when emus lay their eggs. That's the real. And that's coming from that's that law, and it's that living spirit, and that's real, and that's foundational to all of us, even though the story changes as we go along. Same way you walk in that song line, then you switch to the next language, and that entity will change, and its footprints will change to something else, maybe claw marks or something like that, because the entity, changes form. But this is the last thing, is that where it went wrong is when that spirit, when that changes to religion.
Yes, that's right.
And that was when the people with ritual authority start to move across and try to have secular authority. And so that's why, it was important you brought up the Catholic Church before, because it's the same thing. It's when suddenly, the priests and the kings and the priestly class and the wealth class, they don't just have, that divine authority around the ritual knowledge, but suddenly they have the divine authority of law, over the right of refusal and everything else. So it's important that you raise religion, because the religion is the vehicle for how you transfer sovereignty, from people and land and spirit. How you transfer that to some very bad bosses. Sorry, Michelle, I just had to get that point finished and tie them all up like that in a neat
I'm sorry, could I just say one more thing? I was trying to understand, this is when I was trying to understand dreaming stories and so on, and being told, even though I still needed to try and understand it. And I was thinking about geckos because I see geckos all the time here. They're wonderful, aren't they? And I thought, well, people, especially the scientists, they want to look at, or many people want to just look at the materiality of things. And I thought, well, a gecko, what's the purpose of a gecko? Well, the purpose of a gecko is that it's got gecko-ness, and what's the purpose of having gecko-ness in the world, Well, it's to perpetuate this gecko-ness in the world. So just to replace gecko with every other living thing, and all of it has a ness character, a character to understand all this stuff. It fills the world. It absolutely fills the world. And I think Aboriginal people, besides most Indigenous people around, but certain, I don't know, certain people who do become religious see the depth core of it, and that's what the ones who try and get away from the idea of a god figure, a figure that invents all this stuff. It doesn't. What invents all this is not a creator, but a creative agency, which is just what do you call it? Energy. That's all it is. So look at everything and try and see and understand their ness of it. Kangaroo-ness, crocodile-ness, whatever. But humanness above all. And what it could be.
And they sing up the heat mirages, they're quiet for a season, and then when you hear them chit again, then that's the heat mirages are starting then too, these things. And so, whatever your story about Kochunga gecko, it's still it's got to have somehow explain that reality of the mirages start up when he sings like that, so
Sorry.
Just wonderful. And look, I really do hate to interrupt. I just know that Mary had asked to have one or two questions, and there's about 3 questions that have come through that are all interlinked, and I'll just try to paraphrase them as quickly as I can. And in a nutshell, people are asking in many different ways, what will it actually take institutionally or legally to recognise first laws and to recognise Indigenous culture in this country so that you can lead a systems change within the culture and within Australia generally. There are a number of questions linked to that about the systems change, the culture change that's needed to break away from accepting colonialism as normal. What do you both think about the future of Australia and how we can support a very different culture into the future? And political structures, of course, our webinar theme.
Yes. Well, the easy answer for me is it depends on who you vote in, But the best answer, I reckon, is for people not to vote. Everybody, millions of people, don't vote. Just simply don't take part in this uncivilizational society or state. You've got to take action. You can't just build on your feelings and what's the name? I mean, I know people will, or they've voted all their life and their families have always voted this way and so on and so on. But it's got to be an action thing, not just, oh, well, let me help you. And I want to live like that. And I'll be recycling and all that sort of stuff. And I'll look after the land and so on and so on. You can do it personally, group-wise, movement-wise, which always runs the what's the name of becoming almost like a cult. That's unfortunate. But somehow that something really truly political, don't vote at all. That's what I would say. Cause a big blow up. It'll come crashing down, and gee, can you imagine the servants of government, the media won't know what to say. They won't. They'll be all twisted. What'll we do? What'll we say? Tell us what to say, government. Corporations. What do we write about this? Nobody wants to vote because they don't want to vote the same mongrels that are always in, and keep this whole bloody global system going. The whole bloody economic system going. A system that allows for poor people to just live homeless, to treat Aboriginal people like really, really badly. Yeah, you know, in America, there are 32 million people who live on the poverty line. The great democracy in the world, so-called great democracy, 32 million people live on the poverty line. In this country, it's about 3-4 million, apparently. In Britain, it's about 14 million. You know, what kind of civilizational bloody state allows that? You know? Anyway. I'll start swearing, Tyson.
Yeah. Hey, mate. Yeah. Well, you know, I got to pull back from my personal feelings about, you know, like trying to advise other people to do it. You know, I think if everybody followed my personal ethics, the world will be destroyed in about 5 minutes. And it'd be a disaster. You know, so I haven't voted since the bipartisan, you know, intervention. Since the intervention happened, and that had bipartisan support, I've refused to vote. But that's not smart. You know, you see what happens in the United States when the left gets disgusted and decides not to vote. You know, the fascists take over, the racists take over, the misogynists take over. Women lose the right to control their own bodies. Women lose the right. You know, people start getting disenfranchised from voting then because you got them ones coming in. You know, if we all went out and didn't vote tomorrow, all us mob, anybody who would listen to us decided not to vote next time around, then Pauline Hanson would definitely be the next prime minister. You know, that's all that would happen there. And yes, she'd wreck the joint, but not in a good way.
I have to say, I'm not sure about that.
Just in a way that would make everything even worse for everybody and make everybody more controllable. And then we just have a few centuries of warlords. It wouldn't be nice.
Well, what haven't we put up with?
But what would have to happen is, you know, that things, our law and the you know, Commonwealth law or whatever would have to become compatible enough. They either one would have to shift or the other would have to shift enough where they're compatible enough where there could be some interoperability, a little bit of interface there. And so that's happening anyway, but not in our favor. You know, it just means that we're all changing our governance models into hierarchical models. You end up with, like, it's usually just 1 or 2 families, boss for everybody. And, you know, becoming queens descended from this particular apical ancestor and nothing else is recognized. And, you know, and you know, making treaties and stuff, but trying to get rules in there about papers, please, and stuff like that. And, you know, basically trying to eradicate 1/3 of all of the Aboriginal population. You know, through definitions and stuff, so that there's, you know, somehow they get a bigger piece of the pie or bloody whatever. So, you know, our law is changing in a lot of places in ways that are compatible. Because, you know, like the Romans and everybody after them, they do like to have their puppet regimes, you know, in their protectorates and little colonies, you know, and there's always somebody who's willing to step up and be king and, you know, smash their own people. Yeah, that's half of Africa at the moment.
What's that other question, love?
Oh, well, really what people are quite interested in, you know, your thoughts on how we do build a better future where we're all connected and we care for country. So perhaps the final comment, would you be able to comment on, you know, if the big picture electoral system is problematic, we're seeing lots of local movements, local communities, Aboriginal communities building the future that they want with or without government intervention. What do you think of that as a way forward of connecting all of that grassroots movement towards caring about earth laws, caring for country? What do you think about that as a way forward for the systems change we need?
I know I sound not very enthusiastic, but that is all that's left really to do, isn't it? Really, that's all that's left. But it's got to be a genuine thing, because what I see around me is unbelievable levels of indifference. That's all. How you can persuade the ones who are indifferent, you know, to do that, I don't know, you know. But in a sense, that's all that's left to do. If people don't want to act, you know, direct action, you know, and so on.
Well,
So all that's left to do is get on with it on the ground. And Tyson,
Yeah.
for your final thoughts before we
Well,
head
you do
off,
have
what
to
do
have
you
that
think?
strong local governance. You know, we learnt that in COVID. These are the communities that do well. You know, they have that good relationship. You know, in that local government, that's when people are looked after in times of struggle, which you know is coming when the petrol runs out, probably later this year. You know, yeah, you're going to want to be involved in local governance, and you're going to want to have, you know, good supportive, you know, mutual aid networks that are, you know, supported by your local council, local government, local mayor, all that kind of stuff. Those places will do well. And then, you know, out of that struggle, you'll end up with, you know, stronger ways of being in that governance relation where there is some kind of sovereignty that's local and mutual, reciprocal, distributed authority, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, I'm sure that everyone would love to hear you chat for a lot more time, and we will again. So join us on Friday, 31st of July from 12 to noon, where Mary and Tyson will continue this fascinating conversation about what we need to do for a better future and all the past issues they need to struggle with.
Yeah.
So now I'd like to say a huge thank you to Mary and Tyson. Tyson, someone did ask,
Thanks, Tyson.
what are you making there? They know that you're making something.
So
What are you making?
it's for my little boy.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
he was asked to draw a buntal, an eagle, the other day, and he drew that. That was how he drew it. And I just thought, that's amazing. That's like old people stuff
It
there.
is.
So I etched that into his little boomerang. Yeah, so I'm just
fantastic.
Yeah, I've just put some native beeswax in there, and so I'm just polishing that in.
People who know you well knew you were working on with your hands while you were
Okay.
talking with your heart.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that. I love that.
Okay, and people who don't would have felt really uncomfortable because I'm
Not at
just
all.
rocking here and doing something off screen.
It's good
Thank you so
to
much
see
for
you.
your
Good to
time,
see you,
Mary
Tyson.
and Tyson.
Yo,
thank you,
Anis, I just
next time.
it's so good I get
Till next time,
a
absolutely. And
chance to
folks,
talk to
please
you.
keep an eye on the WAIJIN Research website. She's small but mighty at the moment, and we'll be having a whole bunch of other amazing events throughout the coming months and years. So,
Yes.
Mary, Tyson, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Oh.
Thank you. See ya.
See you soon.
Oh.